Good morning. It's the early hours of the morning here in America, and I've been up for just a little bit, and yes, I look this bad in the morning, so, be wary. I should probably put a trigger warning on this video for you. I get, the Empress nuisance got me up extremely early this morning, as she always does, demanding her food. So, and of course, I always comply. If I don't, it's peril to my health and well-being. I just finished watching the wonderful Lucy Letby analysis channel. Chris Morris just interviewed Martin Pittman, and it just reminded me of how here in America too we have our own share of Martin Pittmans, people that have attempted to whistleblow and actually have whistleblowed through legal channels, and their careers have been destroyed. Psychologically, just absolutely devastating to them. Financially, it's just been, even though they went through the correct channels. And a good example is a woman by the name of Jamie Reed, Reid. Look her up if you can. She was actually interviewed on the channel, on your trigonometry channel over there, as to what a children's hospital put her through. Although they never fired her per se, because she did go through legal channels. The psychological impact on her, she basically left kicking and screaming, and it actually destroyed her marriage and almost destroyed her life in that whole scenario. So, and again, if you try to buck a certain system, a certain hospital system, pharmaceutical company, or insurance company, you better know what you're doing. You better have a good lawyer with you. Otherwise, that system will destroy you too. So it's the same thing that happens over here too. The whole concept of different shit, same smell. Yeah. And I know there will be, at some point, there will be our version of Lucy Letby will coming in too, because our system is just as bad. It just has a different flavor. And again, I know they're trying to make your system turn into the American system. Well, as we can tell, that experiment is not working. Simultaneously, they're trying to make our systems become more like the NHS too. And again, how our systems were, the birth of our systems, and the ethics, the ethos, why our hospital systems were established. Yours was established because there obviously was a need for it. There was and it sounded like, although it may have had probably had some issues in the beginning, it worked well for you all. And then our system too, a lot of our hospitals were established by religious orders, and our educational institutions that saw a real need in the community for this particular service. And we've gotten away from that. We've become too corporate, too business-like. It's like we've taken the humanity out of our hospitals, and I would imagine that is the same as with you. Again, I just recently came across a wonderful post on Twitter, and it just reminded me of what's going on and his experiences. Oh boy, does it not parallel what Lucy's going through. And I thought I'd read it to you. I've had the privilege of having wonderful parents who taught me the love of history, but even growing up, we always knew what was going on. We always knew what was in the news. There was always newspapers in our houses. The news was discussed. And I can remember who this gentleman was and what he went through. And I plan on listening to podcasts that will delve into the book that he wrote that made him so famous. He's actually a Nobel laureate in literature too. So let me read this to you. And does this not parallel exactly what has happened to poor Lucy? And again, we're going to have our shares of Lucy's, and we may have already had our share of Lucy's. We have a lady that's in Texas who's a serial killer, also nurse, and it happened around the same time of Beverly Allitt. And now when I'm done with Lucy, I'm going to kind of delve into that to see if was she too hounded. And she has spent, 30, 40 years in prison, in a Texas prison for that. So anyhow, let me read this to you. In 1945, Solzhenitsyn was a decorated Soviet officer who made a small private joke about Stalin in a letter. The state opened it read it, and treated it as a crime. Within weeks, he was arrested and stripped of his rank. He was fed into the camps and sentenced to 8 years in the Gulag. The camps were designed to teach one lesson: say nothing, remember nothing, become nothing. He shoveled frozen concrete until his hands split and bled. Years later, Solzhenitsyn would write, "Bless you, prison, for having been in my life." It sounds insane until you understand what he meant. Prison showed him the truth of the regime in its purest form. After his release, the punishment did not end. He lived under constant surveillance, moving from place to place, knowing that writing a single page would mean death. So he did not write, he memorized. Whole chapters of the Gulag archipelago lived only in his head. Friends hid scraps of text. Wives memorized passages. For years, the book existed only in human memory, as fragile and dangerous as a secret prayer. When it finally was published, it did not argue that the Soviet communism had gone too far. It showed that it was actually where it led. Solzhenitsyn had learned that systems built on lies survive only if people agree to repeat them, and that the simplest refusal to stop saying what you know is false is the first and most dangerous act of resistance. Gosh, does that not ring true? Again, hope to talk to you soon. And again, I apologize for the sight of me early in the morning, but I just felt this was just so important to discuss and kind of put out there too. And is it not proof positive that history repeat itself? And when you take the humanity out of something, out of an institution, and it becomes that institution, that force, look at what happens. Bye-bye.